said, with Solomon's Landscape here. I wanted to do a little short video, or short as possible, about some water. We're June, end of June, beginning of July. It's hot, it's humid, it's dry. It's really dry. So dry that even our grass is starting to turn. But today, in this video, I just want to take a few moments. I talked in a previous video about um, how much should I water my grass. Well, in this video, I wanted to really talk about plants, because the question comes up: how often or how much should I water my plants? That depends. I wish there's not one specific answer. There's a lot of factors and variables that go into that. However, some questions to ask: are they brand new plants, or are they existing plants? If they're existing and been there for at least 3 years, generally they're pretty decent. There's some that are a little more tender to the heat, and may require some supplemental water. If they're planted in the right places, in the right spots, generally they should be self-sufficient. With the occasional supplemental water, I think we're working on about 30 days. As far as no rain. Of course, if we go longer than that, potentially there's going to be some devastation potentially happening with our plants. But there's no right or wrong answer. If it's a brand new plant, if it's new plantings, they're probably going to need to be watered pretty much every single day. And it's going to depend on how are you watering it. Are you watering it via hose? Are you watering it via drip line or soaker hose? Because they're going to have different rates of output. So they're going to put out more different levels of water at certain times. I like to use drip line that typically only does like a gallon per hour. You can adjust that, but they're going to be lower amounts than if you just stand there with a hose. So there's some factors to consider on that. How we tell if the water is receiving enough water is usually what we see this time of year. Sometimes it is too much water, and I've seen that too as well. How do we figure out whether we have too much or too little water? This time of year is usually too little water, but sometimes it can get too much, and I've seen that as well. But the plants talk to us, and so typically what you can see if they're under stress, meaning it could be any number of factors, but generally a new plant, if it's been planted within the last 2 or 3 years, will tell you by talking to you. So, are the leaves turning yellow? Are the leaves kind of drooping over? Is the plant sort of drooping over? If it's not its normal habit, then chances are it's probably too little water. If you especially have I'm looking at a rose in front of me. It's got green leaves, and then if they start turning yellow, it's probably a sign that it's getting not enough water, especially in this first season. That's a good indication. That's not always the case, or that's not always what's the problem, because those colored leaves could be any number of things. There's pests and diseases, so pests typically eat holes in the leaves. Diseases will a lot of times return leaves different colors, but they're also going to have different, like black spots variations. So I'm looking at my rose and I see a couple of indications that there's a disease because it's not a true yellowish. But realistically, if you're not sure, if you don't see those signs, or if you're not sure, one thing that I tell people to do is do a finger test. So essentially what you want to do is you go to the plant where it's planted, usually the root ball, just take your finger and stick it right in the hole right beside the plant and kind of get a feel for the ground. Is it very powdery and fine and dusty? If it is, probably not enough water. And then if you stick it in there and it's just nothing but sopping wet, really moist, you can pull it out, roll it into a ball kind of thing. Too much water, and that could be just as detrimental as not enough water. So it's a balance. I know there's a wide range, and especially those plants, those first 3 years, you're going to have to keep a really good eye on them, because that's the window that they're really trying to just get established and survive. After that, they generally do fairly well on their own with a little bit of tender care. But generally, once that third year is done and passed, you can take, we don't have to really pay them attention. Every once in a while, I do want to check, but generally speaking, just go ahead and check that soil. Is it moist? Has it got a lot of water content, or is it, dry, powdery? And that can change from day to day, from week to week. Are we getting water from the sky? Are we getting water from a drip line? So, if you do have a drip line, that's awesome. That's great. Go ahead and get that set up. Are they new plants? Full sun, perhaps go ahead and start with about, depending on the emitters, how much water is getting coming out of those emitters. Um, the type of plant, the size of the plants. So if it's a larger plant, it's probably going to need more water as well. So keep that in mind when you're doing that and when you're thinking about that. So I know it's not a straightforward answer, but again, I hope that helps you guys figure out what that is. Generally speaking, the plants, when they first get in, you want to put at least 1 to 2 gallons a week on them, more or less. Depending on site conditions, the type of plant, the size of plant. So, the smaller plant that helps. Thank you so much. Questions, comments, drop them below. Talk to you soon.